I've spent several years studying what strong personal foundations means to sport athletes and have been an associated mental trainer to the Danish national team of speed skating. Speed skating is a minor sport in Denmark, but a major sport in the rest of Western Europe and many places in the rest of the world. Colombia, USA and Korea have raised some of the world's best speed skaters. As you can see from the pictures, it is not entirely a safe sport. To be in the zone at the moment when it really matters can both give performance anxiety and also fear of injury. The mental challenges you find in this sport is equal to what you find in motorsports. Picture that you are running on a pair of inliners at a speed of 30 to 60 kilometers an hour on a 200 or 400 meter oval track. You and your competitors are as close as the cyclist in Tour de France. You do wear a helmet and a thin skin suit, and that is it. Courage is needed, as well as a belief in own abilities and possibilities to perform. Courage, beliefs, abilities and possibilities are some of the key words that are similarities between sport athletes and business athletes. My life as a professional business coach in the largest bank in the Nordic region has taught me that using my eyes and ears is one of my main tools. I have used the ability in the world of sports as well. I have the appreciative approach to the athlete with focus on the strengths that are already there and the potential strength that the athlete is striving to utilize. When using eyes and ears, it becomes more visible to see when the athlete believes that things are going well. An explosion in the tempo, passing a competitor without hesitation, eyes focused forward, or a steady rhythm. There are also often signs that he or she does no longer believe that he or she is going to succeed. It can be shaking the head a little bit, a hand on the thigh, a glance back at the competitors behind, an uneven rhythm, or looking down at the competitor's skates. Regardless of whether things are going well or not on the track, the starting point for the next race is to recognize what went well in the previous race. What is it that the skater is very good at and needs to hold on to, and what can the skater do to be even better? Top athletes seldom know the whole story about what it is that makes them great. Often they cannot tell precisely and in detail what it was that made a particular performance a top performance. This knowledge is important because without the knowledge they cannot focus on doing the same thing again, plus something more. My experience is that there are not many skaters who are able to recognize him or herself if a race has not lived up to expectations. There are of course those who are convinced that it is due to others, the competitors, the track or the judges, and that they themselves have been fantastic. They seldom learn the whole story about what they were specifically good at in the race and where it could be useful to focus to become even better. Others just tell themselves that they are not good enough and become frustrated. The most important task for a mental trainer is therefore to rediscover the good elements of the race. I've been close to one of Europe's best marathon skaters who was prepared to stop because he did not perceive himself as being good enough. He was an expert in focusing on what went wrong, letting that be the essence of every race. He learned to focus on 3 good elements in each race and discarded all the "but I" that constantly came up. When that routine was more incorporated, he found his strength, and it was easier for him to focus on the next thing that would make him even better, in order to achieve his objectives. If the skater wins the race, my experience is that the skater is nearly intoxicated by joy and pleasure, and that is healthy. What is equally important is that the skater reflects upon the race and figures out what it was exactly that he or she did to win the race. It is important that they ask, or that the coach asks, questions such as: what was it that you personally did that made the difference? What did you succeed in this time where you normally do not succeed? At what point did you do something different than usual? When did you believe more or most in yourself? How did you visualize your top performance before the race? How did you get in the zone at the starting line? What did you do to stick to the "I can" during the race? What did you say to yourself when the race started, which then made it more difficult for you? If a skater has not discovered anything during the race, then it is my job to say what I have seen, heard, perceived, and make it available to the skater. I say what I have seen, where and when in the race, and I ask what the skater thought and felt. For instance, when you were at the 4th last lap in the right lane, you touched your thigh for a brief moment. What did you think of at that particular moment? When you were 10 meters from the finishing line, you straightened your back a bit. What did you feel at that moment? When you were at the 10th lap and on your way out of the curve, I saw that you flexed your muscles and shortly after passing 2 competitors. What happened? The responses have, for instance, been, I thought, now they're passing. I felt that I had lost the race and that my competitors were stronger than me. I was convinced that I was strong enough for an outbreak, and I could almost feel the muscles. The exciting thing is that the skaters are usually right in their perceptions. The competitors are passing, they lose the race, or the outbreak lasts. My task is to maintain good thoughts and replace all cannot thoughts with positive and realistic thoughts. I do so by asking, for instance, what was it that made you know that you could keep the outbreak? What can you say to yourself next time instead of having to guess how strong the competitors are? The best response I've received yet to the last question is, if I'm tired, then my competitors are even more tired. This came from a skater who in the past was second to bottom in Denmark and after 4 or 5 years was a European champion. The interesting thing is that there's no difference in what I've experienced as a mental trainer for the national team in speed skating and what I have experienced as a coach for managers and employees. The chances of success are greater when we focus on our strengths and then prioritize what is most important to focus on right now to become even better. Look at this picture and notice the different facial expressions. Elena, right marked with blue ring, is situated well in the midst of the multitude of runners, where she is confident that the others do not fall in front of her. And if they do, she will probably not hurt herself, even though she is only wearing a skin suit. The speed is approximately 35 to 45 kilometers per hour, and the surface is rough asphalt. The facial expression of the competitor to the left, marked with a blue ring, looks a little different. Seen from outside, it might look as if she thinks that it is dangerous, unpleasant, or not safe. Or maybe she's just very focused on her race and how she can pass the competitors. Until someone has asked her, only she knows. The coach's job is to work with the athletes in order either to remove focus from the fear or provide support and recognition to focus on tasks. Both are key to making the skater even better. Questions for you. How are your employees feeling about what they work with? When are they feeling good, and when is it dangerous, unpleasant, or not safe? Is it something that you know or something you think? What do you do about it? Look at the next picture. Nikolai, marked with a blue ring, has trained at passing competitors since he was a little boy. He is convinced that he will be successful and therefore he passes in situations where the fewest would try. Questions for you. How much has your staff trained to excel in different parts of their work? How much do they believe in themselves? How much do you support them? The next picture shows Stefan, who is in the middle of the race of his life. His mind revolves around tactics, when he will start the next outbreak, and for how long time he wants the competitors to take the win for him. He's 100% concentrated and focused on his task, and he likes it. But it has not always been like that. Earlier in his career, he was continuously letting competitors pass. He was far more committed to train than his competitors, and technically he was very skilled. All in all, a promising talent, so how come that he ended in bottom 3? Watching him on the round track and asking him for his perceptions made the why very clear. Stefan placed himself in the outer lane on the round track, where everyone else was skating in the inner lane. Stefan tried to pass all the competitors and nearly succeeded. He was 10 centimeters ahead of everyone when he chose to slow down and ended up being the last person crossing the finishing line. After the race, he was irritated and sad and low on self-confidence. Here's a part of the dialogue. Stefan, what do you think about the race?
I think the whole race was bad. I'm not a good skater.
How far was the race?
1,000 meters.
I saw that you were running in the outer lane. How far have you run then?
Well, I guess 1,150 or something.
How much do you think the difference were between you and number 1 at the finishing line?
Maybe 20-30 meters, I guess.
If the winner and you were both skating in the inner lane, who would have won?
Me?
How can you come to skate in the inner lane?
I guess I need to pass or get a better start.
How are you going to do that?
I need to train that part.
I also noticed that when you were close to passing your competitors, you stretched your left arm backwards. It almost looked like you were inviting someone to get in front of you. What were your thoughts at that time?
I thought that it was dangerous and that the others were better than me.
And were they?
No,
So what is holding you back?
I'm afraid that we will fall.
Is that why you're choosing the outer lane instead of the middle lane when you have to pass?
Am I?
Yes, and I can also see that you're looking at your competitors' skates. How come?
I want to know if I hit their skates.
And what does that mean for your technique and speed?
I'm probably losing concentration and speed.
With the fact that you are faster than your competitors, what are you going to do now?
I will get a better start and I will train on being in the middle lane when passing.
So what are you on your way to achieve?
Being the best in my group.
And when are you expecting this to happen?
Next summer.
And what is your goal for the next race?
To get a good start and dare to pass.
4 years later, Stefan won his first gold medal in the European Championship and qualified for the Senior World Cups in long track speed skating on ice. Here you see Stefan's younger brother Philip, who has a similar story to his older brothers. Shortly before Philip saw these pictures of himself, he was number 4 in the Danish Championships, where competition is very limited. Less than a week after, he won the unofficial European Championships in Germany. Huge improvement in a week, and it cannot be because of the muscles growing miraculously, but what was it? What he discovered was that from the start he focused on the competitor's skates and that it was dangerous to take a step to the left. By seeing these pictures of himself, he discovered that there was enough space for that one small step that makes the difference. At the same time, he discovered that he had run faster than the others, since he ran further out on the round track than his competitors. His own conclusion to the fact that he won in Germany was, "I've become courageous." 2 years later, he attended World Cups and the Youth Olympic Games in long track speed skating on ice. Questions for you. How many of your employees need you to tell them what potential you see and how you believe it will affect their performance? How can your employees be courageous enough to take that one little step that makes the difference? In the next picture you see Mikkel. It is necessary for him as well as many other Danish runners to go abroad to find enough competition. He has used many of his races abroad to see how strong the competitors are and has positioned himself in the middle of the group to ensure that he has enough power for the whole race. This has meant that he almost always had unused power when the race was over. I asked him one day, "How strong are you?" And he answered, "You know, this is really what I don't know, and that is why I want to see what the others do." I asked him if he wanted to find out in the next race and reminded him of his strength. In the following race, he found out how much stronger and technically skilled he actually is. He also found out how much more fun it is when you just have to do what you're good at and not focus on what you might believe that you're not good at or what the competitors are doing. Questions for you. Which of your employees does not exploit their full potential but plays it safe, and do you know why? Do they know themselves how good they really are? Do you know? How do they need you to say it out loud? Which of your employees is focused on what they think they cannot do and then limit themselves because of it? How can they focus on what they can do instead? Once Michael was not winning his races, even though he was skilled and strong enough. His courage failed him again and again. Michael had physical signs of an unsupported mental balance. He shook his head slightly, and one shoulder were hanging more than before in the race. At the point where the physical signs showed up, he was always ahead of his competitors. What happened next was a decrease in speed and competitors overtaking. What a shame, and it was the same pattern in every race. That Michael feels ashamed does not help his self-confidence, and it reduces his chances of winning the next race. It does not help either that the spectators' outburst were, "You could have done a better job. You could have followed the first one overtaking you." Only Michael knows what this is all about, so a coach is needed to help him understand his own pattern. Tell me, Michael, what were your thoughts when you were at the right side of the track at the 12th lap? At that time, you were shaking your head.
I thought that I lost it. My competitors are closing the gap and my legs are starting to hurt.
My observations were that you shook your head and immediately decreased your speed with about 10 kilometers per hour, and that is when the competitors were able to close the gap and overtake you. What do you think about that?
I get irritated. Did I really shake my head?
That is what I saw, and I also had the feeling that you got angry. Did you?
Yes, I got really angry with myself that I did not have more power.
How true was it that you did not have more power?
I guess it wasn't the whole truth. I guess I just gave up. It felt like someone telling me that I was not good enough.
Who or what was that someone?
I think it was a monkey giving me bad advices.
If it had been a normal training day, how do you think the result would have been then?
I would have kept my speed then.
What is the reason that you can keep the speed?
Well, I have trained a lot and I'm strong.
And what are your technical abilities?
I have improved my technique a lot lately, so I'm very satisfied.
This means that you are actually at a very good level, both physical and technical, and what is holding you back is a monkey that gives you bad advices. Am I right?
Yes, that's true.
What did the monkey say to you?
It said, the competitors are coming.
And was that when you shook your head?
Yes, I'm quite sure now.
Now that you know that when the monkey talks to you, you shake your head and the brain signals to the legs to reduce speed. What do you want to do instead?
I had to get rid of the monkey on my shoulder, telling me that I'm not good enough.
How will you do that?
I could imagine that I take the hand and rip it off my shoulder and then throw it away.
And what more will you do?
I will tell my legs to pull themselves together and do what they are trained to do.
And what more will you do?
That's it. I'm ready.
Michael has gotten himself something that in the coaching language is called an anchor. From there on, he started to win the medals he was meant to get. His focus on what he is good at and a solution to how to deal with his challenge brought him in that position. This is an example of how you can improve the way you manage your brain. The coach is supporting with relevant observations, but is not acting as a judge. The only one that knows what really happened is Michael. Let's say that Michael was bothered by a bee. That could make him shake his head, lower his shoulder, and get him to reduce his speed. Thank you for listening.